Well, good afternoon, everybody. How y'all doing? Pretty good here, and welcome to the channel. Hey, I want to get on here today and talk a little bit about lifts, specifically block and spacer lifts. I've seen a lot of questions and comments and things. Are they any good? What is it? Some people know, some people don't. And to be honest, when I first had the lift done on my truck back here, and this is a 2018 Tacoma, with a 3.2 ready lift, I had no idea what that meant. I'd never lifted a truck before. And even when I was told what it was, I nodded and said, oh yeah, like I know what I'm talking about. And I still had no idea. Until now, when I've gotten under there, had it done, taken a look at it, and kind of figured out for myself what a block and spacer lift really is. So we're gonna take a look at that. Before I get into it, and also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, the first thing that I'm going to take a look at, I made a couple of wooden measuring instruments, let's say. Because the first thing is, when you get, in my case, a 3.2 ready lift, do you really get a 3-inch and a 2-inch lift? So I made these little measuring tools so that we can hold them up against the equipment that was put on the truck, the parts, to see if indeed I have a 3.2 ready lift. So let me show you what I've done as far as that goes. I've got a tape measure here, and you'll see there are two pieces. One says 3 inches, you can see 3 inches on the tape, and one says 2 inches, and that's this little tool here. Now they're not exactly right. They might be plus or minus 1/8 of an inch or something like that, but they're pretty close. They'll give you an idea. So let's start with the 3-inch. We're going to go here to the front. And again, this is a block and spacer lift. And what does that mean? Well, up here above the coils, they put in a spacer to take up space. And what that does is it raises the body of the truck. It is not a suspension lift. It actually raises just the body. The suspension remains the same, almost. So first of all, let's take our little tool here and do a measurement. That's 3 inches. The spacer hits up here in the top. And then we're going to look and see where it ends. And of course, you can see the spacer ends right here. Obviously, right there. That's not 3 inches. 3 inches is down here somewhere. Now, the reason it looks that way, or it appears less than it is because the spacer compacts the coil here. So you really have to look at the measurement from the bottom of the coil, or down in this area, up to the top of the tower here, to see what the true measurement is. Now, it's hard to see here. I'm just going to kind of guess a little bit, but you want your 3 inches to be somewhere right around here where the bottom of the coil hits to the next coil that it's pressed against, because that's where your true lift is going to be. And you can see it's pretty much dead on. I know it's hard to tell because I can't really get in there to show you guys, but right about in this area here, and it's kind of right around the back where you'd have to see it, is where your measurement is for your 3-inch lift. Now, why is that? It's because this compacts the spring. The spring would normally be up in here, and that's what your body would sit on. So that gives you your 3-inch lift there, if you will. So I'm pretty satisfied that indeed I did get a 3-inch lift here in the front. Now, let's lower the truck a little bit, and we'll go around here and take a look in the back. Okay, we're out here now in the back of the truck, and this is where the block part of this lift is going to be. And it is indeed actually a block. It is a block of steel, and it should be 2 inches because that's what we bought. So let's take a look. It's right here underneath the leaf springs. You guys can see the leaf springs are right here. Oops, right up there. And the block sits right here. This chunk of steel, right? And we have our 2-inch little measuring device here. And you can see if I put it in there, it is indeed 2 inches. So we did get a 2-inch lift here in the back as well. Now you can see, we'll look at the other one over here, that block actually goes all the way across. It is indeed a big chunk of steel. You can see it on both sides here, hopefully. And it does measure out, as I showed you guys there, to be 2 inches. So I'm satisfied, first of all, that I did indeed get a 3.2 or a 3-inch, 2-inch lift. Now, a couple other things to mention. Why a 3.2? I mean, isn't that going to make the truck sit weird? Isn't it going to be off? It's not going to be off because the front of the truck actually, from the factory, sits about 1 inch lower in the front. So it's already angled down in the front. This is what you would call a leveling lift, because what it does, because it's 3.2, it takes that inch, brings it up, and then you go another 2 inches to raise it. So in essence does this and this. That is so it is level with the rear, which you have raised 2 inches. That's why you call it a leveling lift, or you'll hear a lot of people mention a leveling lift. That's indeed what I have on the Tacoma back here. Now, why go with a block and spacer lift versus a suspension lift? Well, there's a few reasons. First is cost. It is obviously cheaper to go with something like this. All you're paying for are 2 hunks of steel and 2 spacers in the front and a little bit of hardware, and then of course the labor to do that. So obviously it's going to be cheaper. With a suspension lift, you're going to pay for shocks and struts potentially, and coilovers and leaf springs, you name it. The sky's the limit when you go with a suspension lift. So why pick one over the other? Well, ride quality is certainly going to come into play. With a block and spacer lift, you're in essence contracting or compacting the suspension that's on the truck. You're putting something in between that's going to squeeze that tighter, like the springs that I showed you in the front. You know, they were like this before, and now they're like this. So obviously, when you're riding around and you're absorbing the bumps and things, you've got less spring to absorb those bumps. It doesn't bounce around or absorb as much as it would because you've compacted that spring. You've taken away some of the springiness of it, if you will. Same thing in the back. The leaf springs have now been more compacted, so they're going to have less give in them as you drive around, going over bumps and stuff and whatever, and you're going to have a stiffer ride. So don't let anybody tell you that it's the same as it was before. It's not possible. You are altering the suspension ride quality, if you will, by compacting the components that make up that suspension. If you're a big off-roader, let's say, I would definitely go with a suspension lift. I don't believe, my own personal belief, that block and spacer lifts are really designed for off-road. People do it, I know they do it, but you've already lessened the shock absorption ability of your suspension by putting blocks and spacers in, and it's only going to be worse, thus more hit, more impact on the parts of the truck, because you're not allowing it to do what it was supposed to do from the beginning by taking up that extra space. You're going to get a smoother ride on the pavement, of course, as well, with a suspension lift, because it's going to give you more play than you would have with the block and spacer. So just my 2 cents as far as that goes. Obviously, as I said before, it's much more money to go with a suspension lift, but you have to decide what you want. You know, what are you looking to get out of the truck? Is ride quality important for you? Yeah, you probably ought to look at a suspension lift, or a suspension lift. Now, one other thing that I want to mention, in essence, by lifting my truck with a 3.2 ready lift, I got a 2-inch lift, right? I compensated for the 1 inch that it was lower in the front, and then I raised the whole thing 2 inches. But I also put larger wheels and tires on the truck, so it's even higher, because the new wheels and tires are higher. So I'm going to add more lift by doing that, or raise the whole truck off of the ground higher by going with the larger wheels and tires. In my case, and in most cases, unless you go nuts, you're going to be adding probably right around 3 inches or so to the height of the truck just by putting larger wheels and tires. I have 20-inch wheels and 33-inch tires. So I've added, like I said, right about 3 inches, 2.5, 3 inches, something like that. So I've ended up, by doing what I've done here with my setup, with about a 5-inch lift. That's the true impact in the end. So that's something to be mindful of if that's important to you. You know, if you're going to do a lift that's 3 inches, and then you're going to put bigger wheels and tires on it, you're really doing about a 6-inch lift. Some people pull their trucks in garages and things. You got to be mindful of that. It may not fit when you're done, if that's important to you. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, talk about that a little bit. You know, again, when I first did this, I had no clue. Even when I was done, I had no clue until I came out and actually looked at the truck myself. Now you guys can see what it really means, at least with a block and spacer lift. As usual, appreciate you guys watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. What do you prefer, suspension or block and spacer? And we'll see you next time on the web. Have a great day. Bye.